from Barbara Ching. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for persisting to the end, and thank you all the people at Iowa State, beginning with Ross and extending through the Provost Office for making this event possible. I'm going to be able to keep this short so that we can get to the discussion. So thank you for your attention, and it's sort of going to call for some divided attention. What I'm doing here is reflecting on the space that we are doing our work in, the space we've spent these past few days in, and that is the college campus, especially the college campus in the Anglo-American tradition of campus design. I want to think of it as a world exterior, a space that's neither urban nor rural, a space not fully controlled by capital, a place where we teach what Sloterdijk calls explication, and in my graduate school days we called intervention, and among other things that we teach, some things which are more valued in the world interior than explication is. In James Smiley's novel Moo, which is set during the fall of communism, on a land-grant campus that is sort of the composite of all the land-grant campuses we know of. They're almost all referenced at one point in that novel. Some students and faculty organized against big ag encroachment and against cuts in state support. In the midst of the protests, or almost as revenge for the protests, a radically non-corporate horticulture garden gets destroyed. Right afterwards, the provost comes to rue his complicity in this symbolic destruction. And he commits to the new and to the traditional outcome of education as part of his regret. And he also gets married. And that's actually important no matter how trivial it sounds, because shaping this story in the form of a comedy is shaping it to be a story of hope and renewal. And that's what comedy has always been, and possibly always will be. It's one of the most ancient genres we know of. At any rate, the provost says to himself, right before the multiple weddings that end this comedy, the university could teach a kid, male or female, to do anything, from reading a poem to turning protein molecules into digital memory, from brewing beer to reinterpreting his or her entire past. This teaching in this space matters. That's what the provost comes to realize. And one of the ways this space matters is that it is removed from the rest of the space that surrounds it. Campuses have gates, campuses have walls, campuses have well-defined entryways. The space of a college campus creates critical distance and generates hope in the social and political senses of the word. It's a rather bland observation in many ways, but it's useful when you think about what Ross, in his notes for the program, calls us to, and that is a solicitation to think through what is not the urban, what constitutes non- or extra-urban spaces and practices, what geographies, technologies, and architectures or social practices resist their capture in ongoing processes of urbanization. In this talk, I emphasize the hope and its grounding in campus design and the ways in which it maintains a critical distance. We can talk about all kinds of breaches and failures of that distance as well, but today, for the last talk, I want to talk about hope. And so in the background here, I call attention to ways in which commissioned artwork, architecture, and landscape design shape the campus. And while you may recognize some of the places that I'm showing you here in the background, one of the points I'm wanting to make is that there is a readily identifiable organization of space and expression of purpose that makes a college campus a college campus. So while you may be guessing as to what campuses are displayed here, or you may have been to some of them and know, I've really chosen from a range of mostly urban universities, but not entirely, to illustrate and accompany my talk. As my colleague Barbara Blakely has pointed out in her article, A Pause in the Whirlwind, campus design manages powerful forces, and I want to make a point of that word forces. I didn't go the direction I wanted to there. She points out that the way we talk about campus design, specifically the way designers talk about their design, is as a way to manage the powerful forces of what happens on campus. She quotes Richard Dober, who says that campus design echoes curriculum design, and now I'm quoting Dober. It's intellectually, higher education depends on balancing the forces of continuity and change, a fundamental in defining a campus architecture rooted in reality and imagination. This design philosophy echoes in landscape architecture on campus. Ernest Walker describes his designs as an aim to gather the forces that fit new thoughts into new conditions. And so I'm illustrating forces in various places that evoke a lot of our fears about what students are capable of, or evoke a lot of our hopes for what students are capable of. And thus I want to call further attention to the social imaginary and the language we invoke when we talk about campuses and what happens there. As I've already said, it's a defined space, but it's also a defined time. It's a delimited time, and it's got a particular vocabulary that goes with it to define that time and that space. For example, we use the word campus itself, which is Latin for field. We use the word university, which seems to be any place and every place. And we also talk about campuses as alma mater. We like to think of campuses as the mother of our soul. And at least in the Anglo-American tradition, we organize that time in a gestational 9 months with a break for summer. And we call the beginning of that time a matriculation, a connection to the mother. We call the end of that time a beginning, a commencement. It's a ritual that marks the end of the time with the mother, and a beginning because the students re-enter the world interior and commence a life with a new soul, a life that the alma mater gives. It's corny sounding, but I wanted to say it anyway. And then I come back to our sense that students are a particularly fearsome kind of citizen. Those pictures have gone past. But a gathering of students, that's a scary thing. I'm going to quote Merle Haggard on that. The way he put it in 1969, contrasting Muskogee, Oklahoma, a place his family had left behind long ago, to, say, Berkeley, a place in the world he actually inhabited, he sang, I'm just going to say it, leather boots are still in style for manly footwear. Beads and Roman sandals won't be seen. Football's still the roughest thing on campus, and the kids here still respect the college dean. That wasn't 1969. He just said that in 1969 to evoke all kinds of emotions and reactions, and he did get all kinds of emotions and reactions to this depiction of what students are doing now. They're scary. They threaten the status quo. They threaten in large groups to bring change. And so, so does moral panic, the kind of moral panic we experience now about political correctness on campus and about radical faculty. So it's not only fears about student uprisings, but fears about what we do. And you got to admit it, the word profess has all kinds of unsettling references. Our teaching and research, our role in shared governance also enable and maintain a critical distance. And we need to be active in protecting and maintaining that, our exteriority. In our required courses here at Iowa State, I did want to talk a little bit about that. We do ask students to particularly focus on what the college campus does and how the college campus has been designed. I'm talking about in our first year required English courses. Students are asked to engage with and interpret the art on campus and the design of the campus and the space of the campus. And they write about it, they give presentations about it, they often create some kind of poster or other visual document about what the campus is and what the campus does. In her Whatever Happened to the Faculty, Drift and Decision in Higher Education, Mary Bergen, an AA, American Association of University Professors officer, asked faculty to decide to protect the critical distance that a campus represents, that campus transmits, that a campus instills into students. And she talks about this in both a specific and metaphorical way. What first sparked her concern about the campus was the advent, the widely heralded advent of online learning, the MOOCs, and this seemingly interest of the corporation in removing the college degree from the college campus, the possibility of a completely online degree. That's what sparked her to think the campus itself means something. The privilege of spending 4 years or more on a campus is itself a pedagogical experience that we need to decide to maintain rather than to drift away from. And thus, to preserve the exterior in the face of decreased public funding, in the face of delayed maintenance, and rising tuition that limits access to education. That's our job. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for the last 2 days that we've maybe separated ourselves from our students. And that's what we do when we rejoin our students and send them on their way or welcome them to campus in that matriculation and commencement cycle and in these exterior spaces. And that being said, I hope you've had some time to explore the campus. We've cut ourselves off from it to a certain extent here, but Iowa State has been particularly proactive in commissioning artwork. And some of it's very disturbing. Ross and Max and I were talking about some of the, we might call Monsanto-inspired artwork on campus. But there's also a lot of artwork here and construction here and kind of the original design here that shows you a very committed decision in 1858 to build a beautiful campus that would give anybody who wanted to come that removal, that experience of the world exterior and the opportunity to take back in whatever you were inspired to effectuate in the world. Thanks.